I'm Shane Bybee. I taught for over 20 years and have spent the last 10 years guiding high school students on their journey to college. One thing I've discovered is that everyone's college experience is different. That's what this podcast is about. What are the things you didn't learn in high school that can help you transition and succeed in college? Today, we're meeting with Sydney Rose. Sydney's a junior at the University of Texas at Arlington. She's a political science major, minoring in economics with a focus on international relations. So a very specific major. Good morning, Sydney. How are you doing today?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a long time, man.
It has been.
A little bit on our background. So Sydney's a unique interview for me because not only did I work with Sydney when she was in high school, but then when she did test prep and then she worked with her college applications. But I liked Sydney so much, I hired her. She probably doesn't know this, but she was the longest surviving admin that we ever had. She worked here for about 18 months or so, I guess.
Yeah.
16, 18 months, helping us keep things organized, keep things going, writing blog posts for us, fantastic stuff. And then discovered that college was getting a little more demanding, I think, and decided to that she needed to focus on that a little bit more. I hope that's why. I hope it wasn't that I just chased you away. Sydney and I were talking right before this, it dawned on me as we were talking that in the weird way the world works, Sydney's dad is a lot of the reason that Bybee College Prep even exists. So I didn't want to tell the story then, but back in my last year of teaching, I kind of knew because of the kids, because of my boys, I was like, I want to have more freedom. And I was on a committee, a school organization committee with your dad, and your dad and I got to talking about it. And your dad's been a fantastic mentor for me. And man, you're talk about a businessman. Your dad, he's got the ad agency, Mojo Media, the marketing agency, Mojo Media. Does he still have the eyeglasses place here in Southlake?
They don't have a contract with them anymore, but
Okay.
They were originally doing that. Yeah.
Okay.
But he mostly does a lot of speaking engagements now because he had written that book and he just kind of goes around talking about that.
Plug his book, ROE, Return on Energy, talking about that and the idea of being in that. So that's just a fantastic guy. Mike Rose at Mojo Media. Look him up on LinkedIn. And then we'll put Sydney's information on LinkedIn as well, because this, guys, is a rock star in the making. I cannot tell you 3,000 or so kids that I've worked with over the years. And this kid sorry, I know you're 20 years old now, but you're a kid to me and you're always going to be a kid to me. But this kid she's a rock star. I very rarely, a couple of weeks ago, we met with Mackenzie Malloy, who's a law school student at SMU now.
Oh, cool.
And, she's in her second year at SMU. That was episode 6. It comes out day after tomorrow in our sequence. So this one will come out about the third week of February, I think, is when I've got this one scheduled. But I have the good fortune of meeting some students that are it's so clear early on because they are, just so rock solid that they're going to be really good. So that's a long soapbox for me. Let's talk about you. You're a political science major, minor in economics. How did you figure out that's what you wanted to do?
It's a funny story because originally when I started high school, I wanted to be a doctor, which thinking back now is just so not me. Blood makes me queasy. I could not do that. And then I joined high school debate, and that was kind of where my social life in high school centered around, as well as my academic life. It was just a place where I felt really at home in school. And that got me interested in the news and reading about what's going on in the world greater than myself or my hometown. And I just fell in love with it. It was kind of a way to access greater causes while also doing something that I was really interested in. And I since then have just kind of gone where I feel like I am interested. And I feel like that's really paid off because I love what I do and I love school and studying and all of that because I love the topic.
You said you love what you do. So what are you doing now?
So right now I'm studying for the LSAT and teaching yoga, which took a really weird turn because over the past few years I've been involved in student government and their leadership team. and an Archer Fellowship where we do internships in DC. And I'm now this semester just kind of taking a break, studying for the LSAT and trying to get a good score.
So you said Archer Fellowship?
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
So Bill Archer was a senator for Texas not too long ago, and he started the Archer Fellowship, which is a fellowship across the UT system. So they take students from UT Dallas, UTPB, UT Austin, obviously, and Arlington, and a few of the other ones. And they all bring us together and try to make it as diverse a group as possible and get us to have conversations about what we believe, why we believe it, and also get us to expand on our interests by having internships where it's interesting the process because you do have to find the internships on your own and apply for them on your own with the support of them editing your resume or your cover letter or whatever. And you just kind of see where the chips fall. And I ended up interning at the Kluge Center at the Library of Congress, and then where else? Oh, Capital Decisions. It was a lobbying firm for mental health policy.
Okay. So you internship at what was it called? The Kluge Center?
The Kluge Center at the Library of Congress.
Okay.
The focus of the center is to bring academics to policymakers to make policy more educated.
Okay. So what did you do there as an intern?
The main thing I did was work on research projects. It was honestly my favorite internship that I've ever had. I was basically reading old newspapers, which to a lot of people does not sound very interesting, but I had so much fun doing it. It was a research project that I was technically the research assistant for the head of the project, working on the social implications of World War II on North Africa.
Okay.
So it was a lot of old newspapers from the United States, but with regard to like Morocco and Tunisia and a lot of those North African countries.
Wow. But I think what happens for a lot of people is they hear you're going to have an internship, you can get a fellowship, but they don't really know what that means. They know what the words are. But
yeah.
When you were a senior in high school and people are like, well, you'll do an internship eventually. You kind of knew what that was going to be, but you can't discover it until you get there. It's like a lot of things, right? Paid internship or unpaid?
These were unpaid, and that was a little bit difficult. I had the summer prior to me participating in the Archer Fellowship. So I was working for a law firm, and that was really nice because they were paying me to do that. And I was essentially doing the same thing I was doing for the Kluge Center. But I gained way more connections from working for the Kluge Center and with the Archer Fellowship. So I think it's just finding a balance between the positions that are willing to pay you and might provide less connections versus the ones that are unpaid and you kind of have to just deal with it. And there's other payoffs.
Well, so right now, are you living on campus or are you living in your own apartment?
I'm living in an apartment right now. I was living around campus for the first couple of years, and now I'm living like 20, 25 minutes away because I don't really have to go to campus very often.
Yeah. Thank you, Corona.
Yeah.
Well, when we talked that year that you left, you were like, you were going to be moving closer to campus, and that was going to be one of the problems coming back up here. Okay. When you graduated from high school, you accepted the CAP program. Like when you got your college acceptance, among the many college acceptances you got, one was the UT CAP program. And I haven't talked on the podcast yet about what that CAP program is.
Oh, okay.
Would you talk about it a little bit and how you found out about it, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So the way I found out about it is I was admitted to it. It's not something that you automatically apply for.
So did you know about it before you found out you were admitted to it?
I had no idea. UT was the school that I most wanted to go to because of their government program. They don't have political science. It's called government there. But they have had a lot of really amazing students come out of there and a lot of senators, not that that's what I want to do, but just a lot. The program is really developed. And when I got my response back from UT after having applied is that I was a CAP student. And I had talked to a lot of other students at Carroll about that. And a lot of them had the same response from UT. And so because that was my main school that I wanted to go to, and I knew pretty well that I wanted to go to graduate school or law school. So I wanted to stay in Texas and not have crazy tuition where I'd have to go out of state and then incur more debt as I go on to more school after my undergrad. I decided to do that because UT was the school that I wanted to go to.
And when you got that acceptance, when you got to the CAP program, because I kind of felt like the year you got it, a lot of students were admitted to the CAP program instead of being directly into UT. And the terminology around it now is you got capped. Like it was a really terrible thing. You got capped.
I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah, I've heard that thrown out a little bit. How did you feel about it when you saw you're admitted to the CAP program?
At first, I was honestly really disappointed because UT was the school that I wanted to go to, and when I decide that that's what I want to do, then that's what I want to do. And so it definitely felt like a curveball in the plan that I originally had. But like everything happens for a reason, and I'm really happy with where I am now. But a couple things about the program, and I think structural barriers as to why I ended up staying. It was a choice of mine to stay at UTA, but for other people that might be in the same program, it prohibits you from getting scholarships to help with your tuition at the school that you originally go to. So I went to UTA, and the point of the program is that you transfer to UT after your first year at whatever other institution you decide to go to. But you can't get scholarships. And that was a little bit difficult because there's so many that you'd be eligible for, especially academically. And then to hear everyone else having these like scholarship opportunities, and you're like, I can't do that, is a little bit difficult. But outside of that, it was a really great program. You kind of have to figure out what classes you can take. And then the other thing to know is that your GPA won't transfer to UT. You start back at 0.
Wow.
And that is also kind of difficult. And also UT might not take all of the course credits that you've achieved at the institution.
I think we should talk a little bit about like what the CAP program is exactly. I forget the exact acronym and what it stands for, but if you're a liberal arts major, political science, economics, something like that, you can qualify for the CAP program. And basically, my understanding is they tell you, here's classes you need to take for your first year. Here's the GPA you need to make. If you make that GPA, if you take these classes, then you can enroll at UT Austin in your sophomore year. Is that the basic idea?
Yeah, that's basically it. But I mean, the thing that you don't hear very often is that a majority of students end up staying at the institution that they started in.
Thing I was going to say, I had Andrew Biedermeyer. I've had a couple of students go through it. Andrew, he and I talked, and he said a couple of reasons that people don't go to UT Austin. One is because they get into the CAP program thinking that it'll be a side door into McCombs, and then they realize it's not going to happen. And so they end up for that reason. His observation, and this is a few years ago, is that it's not because they don't make the grades or anything like that, but he felt like about 80% of students who he knew who were in the CAP program were not going to go to UT Austin, whether they were going to stay at their own school or not. And I mean, you fell into that. So what changed? Why did you decide? Because we had this conversation, but what changed? Why did you decide to go to UT Arlington, to stay at UTA instead of transferring to Austin?
Yeah. I mean, outside of the structural reasons, my personal reasons were I met a lot of really amazing professors at UT Arlington. I went to go talk to my advisor, and I also talked to the pre-law advisor because I knew that I wanted to go to law school. And so I was making these like outside efforts to have conversations with the people who were teaching me and the heads of the political science department, because there's not very many students in that department. So when you do go and talk to your advisor or the head of the pre-law society, they're going to give you their time, because even though you're a freshman, there's just not a ton of students for them to be preoccupied with. And I remember I went to go talk to my academic advisor, and she literally took me on a tour of the floor of political science and was introducing me to all of the other professors that I didn't know yet, because they only teach upper level courses. One of the professors gave me a book that he wrote and was like, here you go, like I teach a class on this, and if you just want to read this and see if you want to take it. And yeah, that was a really great experience, and it really made me feel connected to the school and the institution. It made me feel like I had a relationship with everyone there. And it was just like the connections that I was so able to make. And it was so easy to just speak up in class and get heard and have a conversation. And I took a summer course, and it was Intro to Middle Eastern Politics, which it's mainly an upper level course, but my academic advisor had recommended that I take it. And I met the professor of that course, who I've now taken a course with almost every semester, because he's just he's like a mentor to me now. And it was just the people and the professors that I had met that really made me want to stay at UTA.
You're a big part of the reason. I mean, you telling me also, weren't you like the youngest ever Supreme Court justice, whatever they call it, that UTA's ever had, or something like that?
Yeah, that was another reason that I ended up staying, because the campus culture there's a lot less people involved. So those top level positions, the hard to reach opportunities, including the Archer Fellowship, were all more accessible to me, because I wasn't drowned out by a lot of students with the same experiences and resumes and all of that I would have had at UT. And that was another really big reason I stayed.
You're a big part of the reason that I tell people, find a school, find a place where you're going to be in the top third, where you're going to be one of the top third of students or better that can be there. And you just pointed out, right? Well, people don't understand when they start thinking about, like, I want to go to UT Austin, or I want to go to NYU. Jamie Kirby was the second episode we did, and Jamie had a dream of going to NYU, and she's there. She's going to graduate in May. But you know, the whole idea of having that dream school, the programs that they have at NYU, the difference between the programs they have at NYU and the programs they have at UTA, and this is going to be sacrilege for so many people in my industry, but the difference between those programs is that one is in New York and one is in Arlington. And that really, like, believe it or not, the laws of the physical universe do not work differently in New York City than they do in Arlington, right? There's not something they know about political science in Georgetown, right on the front steps, the front lawn of the nation's capital. There's not something they know there about politics. Are there more opportunities for stuff? Sure, but there's opportunities if you're in that top third. So getting to wear the t-shirt that you went to Georgetown is awesome, but it's only awesome if you're having the opportunities for internships, for fellowships, for things like that are really going to give you the chance to make connections, as opposed to being a student who gets through the program. And so it's about finding what's right for each individual student. But yeah, it definitely is sacrilege in this area, or this field that I'm in. People are like, no, if you want to go work at McKinsey, you better go to one of these 10 schools. Okay, cool. But McKinsey's only hiring so many people anyway. So what if you don't?
Yeah, and the other thing that I had to consider is, if you do know that grad school is something that you are thinking about, or even law school or business school or any type of school after your undergrad, it really doesn't matter a whole lot what your prior institution is, because the UT Arlington is the same as the UT to whatever law school I'm applying to. They're just looking at my LSAT, my GPA, and if I have something interesting about me in my personal statement. Because I knew that that's what I wanted to do, it's not like whatever jobs I'm applying for are just looking at my undergrad degree, and that's it.
I mean, there are some schools, Harvard Law, but as I say that, I talk to people, they're like, well, if you want to go to Harvard Medical School, and you look at who gets into Harvard Medical School, they come from these 20 schools. Well, no, they don't. There are a few people out there. And I know graduates from Texas A&M who are at Harvard Law right now. It's not impossible. And I guess that's my thing about, I say this to people a lot. Texas A&M Galveston, which is a part of the Texas A&M system. So if you wanted to be an Aggie and you went to Texas A&M Galveston, you are an Aggie. And they have this really cool, it's like marine engineering. I can't remember the exact title of the degree program, but it is so cool because one of the summers you spend your summer doing this. You sail out of Galveston, you go through the Panama Canal, out around Hawaii, back through the Panama Canal and back. That's what you spend your summer doing.
Wow.
That's like 12 hours of college credit. That's so amazing. That's an amazing program. And I was at an event about a year ago with the A&M, and the College Station folks got up and talked, and then they said, and now we're going to have a presentation from our friends from Galveston. They sat down, and 80% of the room cleared out because they're like, well, that's Galveston. We're going to College Station. I'm like, that program is amazing. And I think Galveston's like a 90-minute drive from College Station. So if you want to go see a football game, you can go see a football game. That doesn't make, I talk about Northlake Community College around here. They have a winter break program, right? I love this program obviously it's not happening right now, but most winters you can spend 3 weeks in Hawaii, and each week you spend on a different island doing different things. And from that 3 weeks, you get 12 hours of college credit. You get almost a semester of college credit. So that's an amazing part. Every college has that. Archer fellowships, internships with the Library of Congress, really cool things to go do that are going to give you. And that's what's going to matter for your LSAT and your GPA. That's what's going to matter when it comes to getting a position at a law firm. Sure. I'm sure there are law firms out there that will only take graduates from these 10 law schools, but okay. There's other ways to get there. And that's what this podcast, that's what I'm really about in this. Is like, there are plenty of ways to be successful. Let's talk about LSAT. What are you doing to study for the LSAT?
Oh man. So I just recently started studying because I want to go obviously the semester right after I graduate from my undergrad. And I'm starting the process a little bit early because I want to maximize my amount of time studying. And whenever I was interning at that law firm last summer, they had a lot of just like talks. So we would have like lunchtime talks with whoever they could get to come speak. And a lot of them were current law students. And they were saying that the best way to study for the LSAT is just to take a solid month and only focus on the LSAT for that month. And it's better than spreading it out to where you have 3 months and you're only going to procrastinate and study in the last 2 weeks right before your test. So that's the kind of advice that I'm running off of right now. And there's free tutoring through Khan Academy that the LSAC is the corporation that, or I guess the organization that the LSAT is administered by. So I'm doing the Khan Academy. I'm taking a lot of diagnostic tests to see where I need work. And the interesting thing about the LSAT is that it's not like the SAT, where you have all of these different like science sections and writing sections, and you have to like know specific information in order to do well. The LSAT is a little bit different because it's not really something that you can study flashcards for. It's a lot of analytical reasoning and kind of like problem solving questions, which I really find interesting, but it's more about strategies than knowledge.
And you're the way the law school selections go, like law schools basically have a threshold that this is the lowest score we'll accept to look at. Is that kind of how they work? What's that process?
Yeah, I think it's kind of analogous to whenever you're looking at your LSAT score to whatever colleges you're going to apply to. I'm kind of taking the same philosophies I learned at Ivy and applying to schools that I know for sure I'll get into, a few schools that I'm right at their median, and then a few schools where my score is they're higher, schools that I probably less likely will get into. And the thing about applying to law schools is whenever you're going to apply to some of those top schools, you apply to all of the top schools. You don't just pick like, I think I want to go to Harvard and then all these other ones. You'll apply to like the top 15 and then all the other schools that you'll probably end up going to.
Okay. Do you want to talk about, are you ready to tell us what schools you're thinking about, or is that not ready to?
It makes me a little bit nervous to say. Dream of all dreams would be Stanford, because I am really interested in data privacy and security. And they have a really great program for that specifically, in the way that it intersects with government and laws, and how government should deal with data and people's personal data, and how social media is taking all of that and predicting your behavior and all of that. So their program is top notch for that. And one thing that I would say to take advantage of in COVID times is all of the seminars that these programs usually have are all online now, and they're all free. So you can go online to Stanford or Harvard or wherever you want to hear whatever's going on at those programs and listen in. And I did that. I've done that a few times to different schools, especially for law school, just to see kind of like what's going on. And it's been a really cool experience that I never would have been able to have if everything wasn't online. But yeah, Stanford, number one. But like that's just kind of a crapshoot. But other than that, UT would be a really awesome law school. They're, I think, 15th or 16th in the nation right now, so that's also definitely not a bad bet. But outside of that, just a bunch of ones that I know that I can get into pretty much.
So some of the questions that I tend to ask a lot of people when we're doing this is like, so, and I think I know the answer to this. Was UTA even on the radar for you when you were in high school?
No. Honestly, I don't even remember if I knew that was here or around here. I picked, whenever you get into the CAP program, you can kind of pick between the other institutions that you are going to go to. And I picked UTA because I was working at Bybee at the time. I was close, and that's about it. And whenever I got there is whenever I realized all of the things that the school had to offer. But outside of that, no, I would not have even thought about it.
So other than UT Austin, what other schools did you apply to?
Because I knew I wanted to stay in state, I applied to TCU, SMU, and A&M, and UT, the main schools in Texas that I think people think of.
TCU, SMU, UNT. Which ones did you get into all of them?
Yeah.
Okay, I figured you probably did. We only talked about UT Austin and CAP program when it happened, but
yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting because I wasn't an exceptional student in high school by any means.
You weren't an exceptional student, Carol. And I'm not saying, I just said that terribly wrong. I don't mean you weren't. I mean, you were the type of student Carol tends to produce. But I got news for you. That's a truly exceptional student. But go ahead. You were saying something there. I just want
yeah. No, well, yeah. I was interested in debate, and I had like the side like passion projects that I like was really interested in. But outside of that, I didn't study a lot harder than anyone else did. I wasn't in the top of my class. I mean, I was, but I wasn't in like the top 10% or anything like that. And that mentality of like, oh, I'm doing okay in school and like, that's good enough, really kind of went out the window when I got to college because yeah, I don't know what happened really. Now I have learned to approach classes as a learning experience. And so my goal isn't to get the grade anymore. It's more to learn.
I so love hearing that.
What is like, yeah, it's a very different philosophy, I think, from the people that I've talked to. But that has really made me more successful than ever focusing on, okay, well, in this assignment, I need this grade to get, because it occurs like this percentage towards my final and whatever. yeah, I just kind of have,
I've got to maximize the value of this assignment in order to
yeah.
get just learn the material, dude. You'll take
Yeah,
care. Yeah.
yeah,
And it happens in high school, right? You're playing school through high school. Like, do,
exactly.
do I take an AP class and make a B, or do I take an on-level class and make an A? Take the class you want to take and do the
Yeah,
best you can in that class and quit trying to game it. I'm always on that. Like, what do you like doing? Is it something you want
yeah,
to do? There's exceptions to that. If you want to go to Harvard or Stanford and as an undergrad, well, they're going to want 4 years of a foreign language. I've had this conversation happen twice in the last week where a kid's like, Mom, I really don't want to do 4 years of Spanish. And then the mom asked me, and I'm like, well, where does he want to go to college? And they'll tell me, and I'll be like, well, Spanish 4 is on his radar then, because he's going to need that 4th year to go to those schools he wants to go to.
hmm,
And I hate that. I hate that it's all about like, where do you want to go to college? Because that's kind of you're one of the things that's I think unique about you, political science, economics, that was your major when you started college, right? Out of high
hmm,
school. You haven't changed.
no,
And a lot of students do, they change majors. Um, and you were a good debater in high school too. So you had a good idea of what things interested you. Um,
yeah.
so we just kind of hit on this next topic that I like to talk about. So what are things that you were like, this is going to be so important in high school, like, or this is going to be so important when I get to college. And now that you're in college, you're like, yeah, that's not really my key to success.
Definitely the name of my school
Really? Okay.
is one of them. Yeah, I had thought that like UT was the only way for me to do anything, and get anywhere and have a good college experience. And even my parents, when I told them that I had decided to stay at UTA, were like, "Are you sure? Like, do you know what that means? Like, are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah, there's all of these opportunities, and these are the reasons, and I have all of them, and whatever." And they're like, are you like, my mom was upset with me for staying at UTA. And I mean, now I don't think she can be that upset, but yeah, that was just, I really thought that the name of your institution was like the thing that mattered and was the only way to be successful in the end. And it's just so not true. And if you just kind of take advantage of all of the opportunities that are coming your way and make really good relationships with the people that you have in front of you, it all works out. It really does.
And what are things that you thought weren't going to be important in high school that have turned out to be really important? It's a tougher one.
Yeah. Definitely making friends. And so my personality type is not the Greek life compatible one. And
But aren't you an AKO?
exactly.
Okay.
So whenever I joined or was starting to go to UTA, there's really not a large social life at UTA. And like the only way that you're really going to meet people um, that that are similar to you, or that you're really going to meet people in general, is through Greek life. And the rush process, if anyone knows about that for sororities, is exhausting. You're talking to people 24/7, and I can talk to people, but not for a long time and not a lot. And that is not my personality. But I was at UT, the rush process is 7 days long, I think, or at least 5 days, and it's very intense. At UTA, it's 3 days. It's like a Memorial Day weekend, and it's a little bit less intense, but it was still a lot for me. And I remember coming back from the first day and being like, I want to quit. I don't like this. I'm exhausted. I cannot do this. And my mom was also like, why are you rushing? That is not your personality. And I was like, no, I need to meet people. And like, I just got to get through it. And it ended up being a way that I made connections on campus. It's the main reason that I joined student government. Now I'm not so much involved with it anymore, but it served its purpose. And I think whenever you first get to campus, it can be a little bit intimidating to meet people and join things and do the things that are affiliated with the school because it's uncool or whatever. But I met so many people, and it was really the foundation for everything else that I did after that. The professors that I made relationships with were making decisions for the Archer Fellowship, and I met them through other students that they had that were in Greek life. And I don't know if anyone knows the big and little thing in sororities where you get like a kind of a mentor. Mine is now at Baylor Law, and I was really lucky to have met her and kind of connect with her through what you can do to study for the LSAT. And like we still have conversations about that, even though she's long graduated. So I just got really lucky with making relationships with the right people that steered me in the right direction.
I know there's the things that you are and aren't allowed probably to talk about the rush process, but I do think people are sidelined when they've never been through it for whatever reason. What kind of, you say, UTA's is 3 days long, Austin's is 5 or 7 days long. What is a rush process like? What do they do?
Oh, so
given that you have some confidentiality, I'm sure you have to respect.
Sure. So the first day you are just going around to all of the different sororities and you're kind of having the same conversation again and again. You're focusing on marketing yourself, what's interesting about you, what did you do in high school, and also kind of gauging whether or not that sorority is a good fit for you, because it's kind of a mutual selection process where they'll say the people that they want and you'll say the sororities that you want, and if it matches up, then that's kind of how it works. And so after the first day, your number of rooms or number of sororities that you're talking to kind of gets smaller and smaller and dwindles down throughout the process, because you're weeding out and they're weeding out the people that they don't want to talk to or don't and you don't match with. And by the end, you'll have one or two, however it works out, what's called bids from sororities who have then chosen you, and now you're in their sorority for life.
I see posts sometimes about here in a couple of months, they'll start here in Southlake about moms and graduates asking people for information about different sororities and letters of reference and stuff like that. So
yeah, see, if I had been at any other school, I probably would not have rushed. Yeah, it's the difference I think is that at UTA, a majority of people pay their own dues. Like students pay their own dues, and it's not cheap. And I think at UT, your dues are a ton higher, and B, your parents are probably going to incur that bill for you. And I think that the experience that I had at UTA was very different than the Greek life experience you would have had at a major institution.
Okay, so you just touched on something that I like to ask everyone, and I don't necessarily I'm asking for dollar figures or whatever.
Yeah.
But you made a choice to go to a public university in Texas because you knew grad school was on your in your future. You made some really great decisions that way. How much debt are you looking at whenever you graduate from college, do you think? None. Okay, good for you.
So you kind of have to be strategic about it if like that is your goal, because I know whenever I go to law school, I'll probably have a lot more debt than I do now.
Welcome to that.
But there's always been an outside scholarship that I could have applied for. The Archer Fellowship paid for pretty much everything, which was really nice. Working over the summer, you can make a lot of money and save up. And at UTA, there's like endless amounts of outside scholarships that you can apply for.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and people don't take advantage of them. And I know you hear that all the time, like scholarship money is free money and you just have to like put in the effort, but it's so true. And if you know that like debt is something that you want to avoid, which I think most people probably do, it's just putting in the extra like hour of effort and writing an essay about yourself or whatever they're asking for, and like that's a couple of $1,000s. But at UTA, the cost of living is significantly lower than if you were living in Austin, because your rent is cheaper and bills are cheaper and everything is cheaper. You're not paying for the parking that you pay for in Austin. And tuition is a lot lower. And one thing that I wanted to talk about is that now I'm only taking 2 classes every semester until I graduate.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so this semester, and then I have 2 more for my senior year. I'm only taking 2 classes or 6 hours, because I just had so much AP credit and so many, I took some summer classes because I just wanted to. And now my tuition is significantly lower because I'm not taking 5 classes. So it's all really worked out.
Now you're only taking 6 hours, so you're a part-time student.
Yep.
How does that affect other things like insurance with your parents or any of the other factors that come in because you're not a full-time student anymore?
It hasn't really affected anything as far as I know,
Okay.
because I'm working as well, and then I'm also studying for the LSAT. So I am just not really involved in campus life and activities anymore. I had thought about for a while running for student body president, and I probably could have done that if I wanted to, but it was just, I'm kind of not involved in Greek life or in student government or anything like that anymore. It's more about finding internships outside of that, or now that everything's online, there's a lot of internships in DC that I'd like to apply for as well, for the summer. So yeah, I'm not super involved anymore.
When you have that advantage too of not being, because you're not because you don't have any debt, you don't have to maintain full-time student status in order to avoid having to pay it back.
Yeah.
So how many college credits did you get for your AP classes going into college?
Oh, I think I had 4 or 5 different classes that I didn't have to take because of that. And oh my goodness, if everyone took advantage of that, I think that they couldn't have that program anymore. Because if you're going to a public institution in Texas, there's so many credits that you can get, and like that's just money that you don't have to pay. Like that's an incredible thing. And the AP tests they're hard, don't get me wrong, but I mean, they're not undoable. And taking advantage of those saved me a lot of time and money and effort that I down the line.
That's a semester of college you knocked out right there before
Yeah.
And we had a person that worked here one time who she started college with 30 hours of college credit.
Wow.
He was driven and wanted to graduate in 3 years. So you're doing the other thing that we have heard. So Yazan Abu Hijli was the first interview, and Yazan did the same kind of deal. He started college, I think, with 24 hours of credit, and he made the choice to just take 12 hours. After his freshman year, he just took 12 hours a semester, graduated on time, but took slightly, not quite as rigorous a course load. And is this the first semester you've dropped to 6 hours, or were you doing 6 hours last semester too?
No, this is the first semester that I dropped to 6 hours, because last semester, with the Archer Fellowship, you're working 40 hours a week.
Oh, okay.
And I was doing research for 40 hours a week. So I was constantly on my laptop. And then in the evenings, you're taking courses. So you have like a 2 or 3 hour seminar on Monday and Tuesday nights and every other Friday. So it's pretty intense. And I was here doing it. So it was all online. I was constantly on my laptop. And now I'm just ready to take a little bit of break, a little bit of breather, take my LSAT and just kind of chill for a little bit. And then I'll jump back into it in the summer.
And so are you going to do 6 hours all the way through, or you just can take, because you're still, when are you going to have to go back to 8 to 9 or 12 hours?
Never, not until I go to law school.
Wow.
So the reason, the main reason,
classes, okay.
Yeah, that I'm taking 6 hours is because I don't want to graduate early. That was originally my plan. I had thought about it, and I just don't think I'm ready to go immediately to law. Like, if I would have to go to law school right after this summer, like this year, and I'm just not, I know that I'm not ready for that yet. I'd like to buy myself a little bit more time, focus a little bit more on my applications and not rush the process. And I'm just kind of taking my time to get there. And it was something that I had considered, but I ultimately decided against it.
That's funny. Mackenzie talks about the other side of it. So part of the reason she says she decided to go to law school was because she got to the end of college and she could see the end coming. She's like, I don't want to stop going to school. I'm not ready to go into the workforce yet. So, so she did the opposite. She did LSAT at the very last minute and got the score she needed, and then did the applications and stuff that way.
Where is she going to law school?
She's at SMU.
Oh, cool. Oh yeah, you said that.
So yeah. So cool. Looking over my list of questions. Yeah, but that's the amount of money you can save. And this is where things are unique for me, because I am so ROI about college. Like it doesn't, I was listening to something this morning. I saw somebody posted on Facebook this morning on one of the Facebook groups that they're asking, what is the advantage of paying off your loans early? The student went to a private Christian college, and the mom co-signed for 80% of the loans. And I don't know that she didn't put any money out there to figure out, but a private Christian college is probably going to be in the neighborhood of $50,000 to $60,000 a year. She didn't name the college, didn't name the numbers. $50,000 to $60,000 a year. And so I hear all the time about I'm all about being practical. If you know you're going to be, and Jamie makes the comment at NYU, she said, part of the reason she's going to go to law school, pardon me, is because she has 6 figures of debt as an undergrad. And she, in the interview, she says, the only way I'm going to pay that off is if I get a job that lets me pay that off. So she's going to law school. Jamie's an amazingly talented artist. So she'll be doing art on the side, but, she's going to be focused on doing law school. This mistake that people make about, it's a mistake. I mean, who knows? If you can afford it, if you can afford to do $250,000 as an undergrad and get a teaching degree, more power to you. But there are so many people. And one of the mistakes I think that happens, get a little political, is in this current environment of equity, right? Everyone needs to have a chance to go to Harvard, and everyone needs to have a chance to go to Stanford. Well, that's great. Stanford and Harvard are unique in that if your family income is under a certain threshold, it doesn't cost you a dime to go there. They're very unique in that category. Those schools that think they're offering a product like Stanford and Harvard that are also charging $60,000 a year, but don't have that sort of support built in, kids are going to graduate from those schools with a degree in social work or a degree in education to go be teachers at a $45,000, $50,000 a year salary and have $200,000 in debt when they graduate. The last interview I did was with Mark Salisbury, and Mark runs a website or a company called Tuition Fit. And Mark's all about like helping people see like, this is how much it's actually going to cost you. And this is what you're going to have loans for. So I'm big on it. And it sounds like you're making such great choices about getting undergrad paid for, because law school, everyone takes on debt for law school.
Yeah.
I guess there are people whose last names end in Trump that may not have to take on debt for law school, but most people do.
Yeah. One thing what's been so interesting and an unexpected benefit of going to UTA is I am surrounded by people who have had significantly harder life circumstances than I have. Everyone has gone through something that or a lot of people, this is a generalization, but a lot of people in South Lake may not have ever thought about or even gone. Like half of the people that I know are just like, I'm going to be in debt forever. I might as well just take it on now and it's whatever. And I don't really care. And it's just like not even a thought to like one day be debt free. And that's just been very grounding and humbling. And everyone that I've now become friends with has kind of opened my eyes to circumstances outside of my own. And I don't think I would have had the same experience going to a different school.
Kate Brecken made that observation a few years ago. We were talking, and she went off to Mizzou to study journalism.
I remember her.
Yeah. And realized that it kind of wasn't what she wanted to do. When she came back, she went to TCC for a semester. And Kate's exact comment was, I think it's Kate Wishman now too. I think she and Eric got married.
Yep. Yeah.
Kate made the comment. She said, at TCC, I'm in classes with single moms.
Yeah.
It's not something you get. And if you go to UT Austin, most of the students at UT Austin are traditional students.
Yep.
UTA, larger population. You probably have classes right now with some single parents.
Mm-hmm.
and hearing what they're having to do and how they're, you know, how they're teaching at home and taking classes and trying to work and all of the other stuff going on for people right now. Yeah, it's cool to get those kind of that real world perspective of what things are like. Not as insulated. Um, well, what's the plan after law school? Let's wrap up with some like big time future. Like what's going to go on after law school?
Ooh, honestly, after law school, I'll probably take whatever job I can get. I'm pretty sure I want to work for a private firm, but doing something along the lines of data privacy, security, something like that. Obviously, I haven't even started law school, so that could 100% change. But as of now, I think it's just good to have a target to aim for. But I don't think I want to work in the public sector for the government or anything like that. And yeah, whatever I do will be kind of more for the greater good. I don't know that I believe in lawyers fighting for things that they don't also believe in. I know it's kind of like lawyer ethics and everything like that, but I don't know that I could do that. So my goal is to get a job that pays well and that I'm doing something that I genuinely believe in.
Cool. Very cool. All right. Anything, any publications out there, any websites we need to let people know about? Anything going on like that for you?
No, not yet.
Sydney Rose brand.
I wish if I had the opportunity, I would 100% do that. My like main criteria for looking at internships now is ones that will let me publish something, because I really do enjoy writing, and especially academic writing. But I've yet to find that out.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Well, dude, thank you so much for the interview. Thank you for sitting down and talking about it. You have such a different perspective on it than what most people do. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
All right. I'm gonna